So it's a funny answer. Medicine was serendipitous for me, really. I, my father, who was an immigrant, a Korean American immigrant, he, of course, like a lot of traditional Asian American parents, wanted me to become a doctor, and that was the last thing I wanted to do was go into medicine. And really my dream as a high school student was to become a special operator in the Navy. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and I wanted to embark on this journey as quickly as possible. So when I showed up to the recruiter, I asked what the fastest way to join the Navy was, and they said I had to be a hospital corpsman, which is the Navy's version of a medic. So for me, I was like, well, I want to be a Navy SEAL, so I don't really care exactly what route I take to get there. So sure, I'll be a hospital corpsman. And it was very serendipitous because I guess it kind of found me. I got this first taste of what it's like to do medicine. And as a result of that event, after I became a SEAL, I became the platoon medic or the platoon corpsman, and that gave me the opportunity to learn life-saving skills, and I had the opportunity to practice those skills in a wartime environment on both my teammates and civilians, and I got to see just the profound positive impact that medicine can have on people. And war was just it was a hard period, as you can imagine, and I found medicine to kind of be the light at the end of that. So after a couple of deployments, I knew that that's where I wanted to take my intrinsic desire to serve to just a different path, and that's why I transitioned into medicine. It was a hard choice, but it was hard and it was uncertain, but like other periods in my life where I've been at those crossroads, I came to the realization that I would never want to live the rest of my life, grow old, and at the end look back and wonder what could have been. So I want to say it was a bittersweet decision. I didn't think too long about it because I knew that this would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I made it. Never looked back, but I would be remiss if I said that I didn't miss medicine. I certainly miss a lot of aspects of medicine, but I feel like I've carried forward a lot of those elements with me at NASA. I think as physicians, we are very used to raw and hard, tough emotions. There's a lot of emotions that go on in a hospital. If you're working on the wards, if you're an oncologist giving bad news to your patients, if you're in the emergency room and you have a young patient coming in who is very sick, there's a lot of struggle there, human struggle. And not that that's unique to medicine. I certainly experienced that from a different perspective being a military special operator. But medicine gave me a different human perspective on that. And it certainly made me more compassionate. And what it really helped me is communicating with people on very difficult discussions, very difficult topics. And I feel that that helped round out my soft skills that I didn't really have a chance to develop in the SEAL teams. I certainly developed a lot of my hard skills being in the military, but the soft skills with the communications and kind of dynamic posturing with your colleagues in order to facilitate a really cohesive team, I didn't learn those skills until I went to medical school, until I worked on the wards. I had to talk to patients. So those were the skills that I feel helped me a lot from medicine that I was able to take with NASA, and those skills are exercised on a daily basis. That's a great question. So if we compare the International Space Station, which is orbiting around us 250 miles up, it is quite a different mission than the Apollo astronauts, and probably it's probably closer to the Skylab astronauts, but still a little bit different. I mean, it's amazing what we have at the International Space Station. We have a pharmaceutical suite. There are medical devices there. There's an AED. There's ways to splint. But really importantly, there is the ability to return to Earth within a relatively short time period. And so what that offers is if anything really, really bad happened, you could probably get someone back to Earth within 4 hours for the next level of treatment. The Apollo astronauts really didn't have that. They certainly had first aid, the basics, but if they were truly in trouble, like the Apollo 13 astronauts were, they're going to be on their own. And that's a scary thought, especially as we go back to the moon, but we have to realize that there's always going to be a risk as we go back and perform these endeavors, as we go back to the moon, as we go back to Mars. They're worthy endeavors. There are some risks, but we have a great team of physicians that will go on, that may go on a mission, and at home in mission control that are watching all aspects of the mission. And so you always have help. You always have a dollar friend pretty quickly. So the medical support is pretty robust for current space missions and will be pretty robust for future missions as we go back to the moon. Space medicine is still a new and growing field, and we learn new things every single day. Certainly when we first went, when Yuri Gagarin went up, we didn't know what short duration or even long duration microgravity would do to the human body. We didn't know what the orthostatic intolerances would do. And certainly we got a lot of information from the Apollo astronauts as they returned to the moon and watching those orthostatic changes, because that's certainly important if you were to be accustomed to a microgravity environment and then have to then land on the moon or land on Mars. You'd like to make sure that you are orthostatically tolerant so that you wouldn't, pass out on reentry. Certainly, we learned so much about the musculoskeletal system and how that behaves in microgravity. Microgravity is not healthy for our bodies. We know this. The human body is meant to be stressed on a daily basis by gravity. Our bones require it. Our heart, our cardiovascular system requires it. So we have learned through trial and error that if we're going to put people in space long term in a microgravity environment, we need to have countermeasures. One of the most important countermeasures that we do on the International Space Station is exercise. Astronauts on a daily basis perform 1 to 2 hours of exercise, and that ranges from being on a bike. There is a treadmill for cardiovascular health, and we have a device called the ARED, which is able to load the user axially up to 600 pounds. And so that's quite a bit of force that astronauts have access to be able to do squats, their bench press, their typical exercises to stunt that deterioration of bone and muscle. I could keep going on, but there's quite a bit of things that we're learning. One of the more recent topics that has come to our attention is a condition called SANS, S-A-N-S. It's Space-Associated Neuroocular Syndrome. And there are some hypotheses on what is the mechanism for this, but essentially astronauts who are in microgravity environments for long duration are having temporary to permanent changes in their vision. And that may be an element from increased intracranial pressure from the result of being in a microgravity environment. That's one of the hypotheses. So we're still experimenting. We're still trying to figure out these answers. So I guess the short story is the body goes through a lot in microgravity. and partial gravity. We have a lot of questions. We need a lot of answers. So for any folks listening or watching this, if you have an interest in space medicine, we kindly invite you to join our ranks. Any new medical student is just to keep an open mind. And certainly I know a lot of physicians who may be watching this will nod their head. I came in thinking that I was going to be an acute care trauma surgeon. And I still, going through, I had a lot of aspirations to do that. But interests change, personal situations change. You might have a growing family. And so I think the best advice for anyone is to keep an open mind as you go through the wards. And you never know what you might like. But after going through that, and if your interest in space medicine is still there, is to just, be a good student, go to a residency. And a lot of people who are in the space medicine field are often double boarded, whether that's in emergency medicine or in internal medicine, and then doing either another residency or a fellowship in space medicine. So there's a lot of roads to get into this field, so I would say just keep an open mind and enjoy the ride, because as you and your viewers know, medicine is a long and hard road. It's hard to articulate that. A lot of emotions, It is extremely humbling and a huge honor to know that you are one of many representatives for not just NASA, our space exploration program, our country, but also for humanity. Space exploration is a win for everyone. And I sincerely believe that as we continue to push the bounds of what we know in space, of human limitations, that it benefits everyone on Earth. And knowing that I have a chance to be a part of it is exciting. It's humbling, but you also have to remember that I and my other astronaut colleagues, we're just the tippy end of the stick on this rocket. We're just the lucky ones that get to experience this. But for every one of us, there's thousands and tens of thousands of people that have worked just as hard, that have told and sacrificed and put in everything to make this mission a success. So it's everyone's win, and it's really cool to be part of that team. I would say, I don't know if my perspective has changed because I'm an astronaut now, but my perspective has changed since I am not in the daily role of being a physician, of seeing patients day to day. But I guess I'm seeing the other side, especially as we have gone through and are currently going through our pandemic, of just the positive difference you can make on just a single interaction with patients, right? So, I mean, as a doctor, you're limited to, especially in the emergency room, you're limited to the number of people you can help in a day. If you're super efficient, maybe you have a great team, you can see a few dozen patients, right? But there's only one of you. But don't think because your limited effect on people on a daily basis is limited to the fact that there's only 24 hours in a day and you're only one person, you can have a profound effect as a physician on the world. And people have seen that with this pandemic, of just the change and the inspiration doctors, first responders, nurses have given to our country. And I loved seeing just the amount of admiration and respect the public has given for our medical heroes. And I know that those medical heroes have inspired thousands to join medical school. And I'd be interested to know if maybe pre-med students, if there's been an uptick in pre-med students or medical school applications because of what's gone on recently. So I think that my perspective has changed, maybe not so much changed, but been affirmed of just how powerful a single person can be in their day-to-day interactions. There's a joke that the safest place is on the International Space Station right now. You know, I think there's a couple ways to view this, and I understand both perspectives. One is, why would we go to space? Why would we go to the moon at a time like this when the world is dealing with so much? Can't we just focus on our problems right now and fix what's down here? And I understand that. I really do. I see it the other way around. And the other viewpoint is there's no better time than now than to look at the stars, to look at the moon, and to reach for them and achieve those goals, because that is planting the seeds every day. You cannot quantify the effect you're going to have on people by planting those seeds for the next generation. And people need to look up, and they need to look up to something that they can hope for. And I think that NASA is really good with that. And I think space exploration can bring that for people, because space exploration will improve the lives of humans on Earth. And we see that daily. We take it for granted. We have GPS, we have our phones, we have medicine, we have data on climate change. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for space exploration. So I'm very proud, and I feel very blessed and humbled to be a part of that, to be still reach the skies for the stars during this really uncertain time in our world right now.